All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us here once again on TejanoKeyboard.com. I am your host, Rolando Revilla Jr. As always, coming to you right here from Toledo, Ohio. I want to send a shout out going out to everybody who's joining us early on, especially going out to Mr. Ruben Villegas, who's in the house. And I'm not even lying, Ruben. I was this close to wearing my Los Hermanos Villegas t-shirt. Next week, I'll wear the Los Hermanos Villegas t-shirt. All right. Also want to send a shout out going out to everybody who's been watching these throughout the weeks. Thank you very much for, supporting the channel and, having all these wonderful questions to ask. Each of these interviews have been awesome. Every keyboard player has been completely different. So that's been really cool. Today's guest is a very special guest, not only because we are family through marriage, but also because he happens to play with one of my all-time favorite groups, Mr. Bam Bam Ramos, and that's his Danny Fernandez. Sorry about that. I'll get that fixed. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great, brother. How you doing over there in Toledo, Ohio? How's the weather over there?
Oh, it's been cold and rainy, and it's just been one of those days.
Typical spring in the Midwest, right?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, that weird in-between sort of thing. And then, it's just gloomy and rainy and cold. It's crazy because a few weeks back, I think we had like an 80-degree day, and like now it's, cold again. So we'll see. Mother Nature needs to get her act together. So how are things? Yeah, how are things down in Texas?
We're at 100 today, and I don't know if you can tell my face is all red. I've been out in the sun all day, so I'm a little fried today.
Oh, that's good.
Now I'm excited to be on your show, and congratulations, brother, to all your success in this show and doing a great job, and continue to keep up the good work, man.
Thank you. And so for those of you who might not know, and I'll explain this. So my wife Bianca, her first cousin is Ben, and so that's why we are, through marriage, we're
through
family.
Marriage, yeah, family through marriage, yeah. And I send a big shout out to all of my family from Toledo, Ohio, and Southeast Michigan. Miss y'all, love y'all, each one of you, and God bless each and every one of you. Hope to see y'all soon. Stay alive and be somebody.
And actually, that leads us right into kind of like our first kind of like icebreaker sort of starting point, is people wondering where everybody starts from. So you're a native of Michigan, correct?
Yeah, Southeast Michigan, right there across the state line of Toledo, Ohio. Monroe County, Michigan, right there, the southeast corner of Michigan is where I was pretty much born and raised until I was 17, 18 years old when I moved over here down to Texas. But yeah, that's my old roots, my old stomping grounds, and the whole Toledo, Ohio area. I miss all the great food from over there, man. You know, Rudy's Hot Dog, and I miss Frickers and Big Boy hamburgers and all that good stuff that you guys get to eat over there.
Yeah,
I have to settle for
the whole
Whataburger.
Oh yeah. So there's a little like not rivalry, but there's two different franchises of Big Boy. Here it's Frisch's, and in West Michigan,
Elias
where I'm from,
across.
is Elias. Yep. And
That's right. And when I go out to California, they have Bob's out there. And every time I go out to Bob's in California, I always tell them, because they have their own special sauce too, right? So I always tell them, you make it with the tartar sauce. And they always look at me kind of weird, you know? But I remember one time getting to that, I remember being right outside right in Ann Arbor, pretty much right outside the University of Michigan Stadium, and ordering it with the tartar sauce. And over there at Elias Brothers, they called it a Ohio style. And I was like, no, Ohio, nothing about Ohio. I got all freaked out because they were like, oh, you want an Ohio style? I was like, well, no, but that's just the way I like the burger, okay? I mean, but so let me ask you a question. I have a question for you real quick. Being a Michigan native yourself,
absolutely.
Growing up where East Lansing, was it? Or
no, I was born way north Michigan, like north of Muskegon, a little town called Shelby, Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
So growing up, I take it you're either a Spartan or you're either a Wolverine, right?
I was a Wolverine.
All right, good. All right, that's great. Now, let me ask you this.
Okay.
I know that you live or you are surrounded by nothing but my whole family pretty much in Toledo is nothing but what are they, buckwheats or buckwheats or something like that? Something like some type of nut or something like that, right? I forget what they call them. They're Ohio something. But are you now one of those things, buckwheats or buckeyes or whatever, buckwheats or whatever they're called? I don't really remember what they're called, but I just know there's something like that. Have they converted you yet? Because I remember talking to some of my family, like, no, we're going to convert them over here. Now they go here. Oh, okay.
So
I'll ask him that next time I see him.
I'll answer that. Oh, Ruben Villegas says the Suckeyes.
Oh, that's right. That's the name. I knew it was close. I was getting close. I knew it was something like a sucking, a bucking, a buckwheat, some type of weird thing that nobody's even heard of ever. It's like, I mean, on one hand you have a Wolverine. It's like the scariest animal, predator that kills. And I'm sure what it could do to one of these nuts. But on the other hand, you have a guy or.
Hey, Ben, I think we lost your audio there for a sec.
Sorry, yeah.
Oh, there you are.
I think, yeah, okay, there we go. Sorry
it's all
that.
good. Okay, so to answer your question a little bit more, so there's a few parts to that answer. Okay,
I don't like the way this sounds already. Okay, I don't like the way this sounds. No, let's answer.
You'll appreciate it. Okay.
All right.
At my core, though, I'm a Chippewa. My alma mater, Central Michigan University.
Okay. Wow.
So shout out going out to all my CMU.
Okay.
I don't think anybody from Central Michigan's watching this, but if you happen to be from the Central Michigan area, that's where I went to college and graduated from. So shout out going out to everybody from the 989.
All right.
So that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
But growing up, my family, they were Wolverine fans. I do have to say though, and this might be the only disappointment, is that I never really got into sports, man. And I mean, I root for Michigan because I'm from Michigan, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
But I don't know, sports were never really my thing. I don't know, I just maybe
was music already.
Yeah, man.
Much? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's the thing. I liked watching football in person because I was in marching band and stuff like that. So I got involved in some of the sports, and for whatever weird reason, I really did like hockey. In high school, my friends and I would go and watch hockey games, but that's just because it was something. The Muskegon Fury was the local minor league team. But enough about me. Hey, are you a Spurs fan now?
No, I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm still a Pistons fan at heart. And then, of course, I always have two teams in each sport because when you live in Michigan, everybody tells you to root for the Lions, but we all know that you're going to be a Lions fan, you have to have a second team because it's just a travesty.
Either that or live with disappointment.
Yes, or yeah. I mean, it's almost bad as being a Cowboys fan or something like that, But no, when it comes to, of course, all my other sports, the only one I do not, root for the homeland on is Lions because of the disappointment that they've been to me and my whole family. My dad, God rest his soul, went to heaven without getting to see the Lions play in a Super Bowl, So I chose the Patriots a while back. I brought my friend Tom Brady again with me to each one of my interviews that I always do. I always get to bring this guy along.
Well, that's cool.
But no, of course, Pistons. Also, I've always liked the Lakers, Tigers, of course, and Red Wings, of course. Those are my favorite teams.
Cool.
Wolverines, man. Go blue.
Go blue. But let me ask you this. If the Lions make it to a Super Bowl, are you getting on the bandwagon?
You know what? Because the guy that plays in our band is a big Lions fan, and I've gotten him tons of Lions merchandise, along the way. Every time I see a piece of Lions gear, and it's always on discount. I always see him for like $2.49 for like a Lions, T-shirt or something like that. So I always try to pick one up for him along the way. I said, okay, I'm thinking about holler, So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's a diehard, and him and some of my other friends from Michigan. Matt Maya is another one that's just like on that, Lions thing, and I'm just like, sorry guys, I can't join you on that one, on that train right there. But
yeah, so shout out to all the sports fanatics who happen to like their home teams, even if they're disappointments, or if you have to have a second team,
right?
And whatever, man. You know what I mean? They all can't be winners, right? You can't have all the good teams.
Not everybody can be like Tom Brady, right?
So you grew up in this area, Southeast Michigan, Northwest Ohio.
Yeah. Yep.
And how did you get started into the whole? I mean, I kind of know some of these things, but just to kind of let people know, how'd you get kind of started with the whole music thing and the evolution that's led you from here to there?
Oh yeah. Well, like a lot of musicians, some of the musicians that I've heard that you had on your show, I grew up into a family band. My uncles all played. My uncle Benny, who played music. My cousin Ruben, my uncle John. Of course, my dad. They all had a band. And I actually really didn't have a choice. My dad, he was like, I don't have any musicians, and I have a pretty big family, so y'all are going to play. He did kind of the Abraham Quintanilla thing, sit down and you're going to play an instrument, So kind of like the guys when I was playing with Ropa, they told me the same thing. Their dad was like, this is a big family. It's either a baseball team or it's a band or it's a soccer team or something like that. And they chose to give them music. And that's kind of what my dad did with us, even though we did do a lot of stuff with sports and all that. But my dad is the one that taught me how to play music. I still remember him showing me all the chords and all the stuff on the keyboards. He wasn't really a keyboard player, but he knew enough to get himself, kind of like how I think we all are, we can do enough on guitar or the bass or drums to get us through a night, or like he would say, we're going to fake it till you make it, something like that. Yep. And so, we did a lot of that stuff, but it was my dad, he's the one that shared music with me. And of course my mom, she loved music. She didn't really ever play anything, but I got started with my dad's band. And we were playing, I remember playing gigs, when I was 10, 11 years old, in some bars in Cleveland, Ohio, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And, but that's where I got started with my dad. And he was a well-known musician around the Midwest area. And he had his few different bands, and that's where I got started with, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And so you were playing with your family band, and then and you were jamming with your brothers too at that point, right? If I remember correctly, the name of the band was the Untouchables. Yeah, Ruben Villegas called it out, the Untouchables, correct?
Yeah, before we had the Untouchables, we actually had a band. It was a family band. It was called the Ramos Rhythm, and that was the very first band that I remember playing with my dad. And he had a band called La Raza Chicana way back before that, and I kind of started playing then. And then when he started his own band, La Ramos Rhythm, then that's when it was full-time, like me and my brothers, my family, and stuff like that. And we did that for a few years. And then, shortly after that, we had formed Los Untouchables in the very late 90s. It was kind of like when the boy bands were coming out, La Fiebre, La Sombra, and all that, So we saw what Tejano music at that time was doing to, the Mexican-American crowd and the crowds from Mexico and the American crowd. And so we were like, yeah, cool. We're being accepted in an American market, being able to sing and playing Spanish, playing Mexican music. Back then to us, it was just Chicano or Mexican music, right. And that's, we were doing that just like a lot of the bands that from the Midwest were doing, quinces and bodas and stuff like that. I remember doing Las Palmas and all that stuff, during that time, the late 80s, early 90s, Mm-hmm. But that's where we got started at there in the Midwest. And Toledo was mainly our main area of gigs: Toledo, Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids. I remember going to Elwood, Indiana, a couple times, but yeah, the Midwest area, in Cleveland and all that. Yeah, but yeah, I had some great memories of growing up in that area, doing my first gigs over there.
So let me ask you this: how did you evolve from playing here locally, doing the circuit like a lot of us do, to ending up on the stage with Joe Lopez?
Well, there was a lot of steps along the way, I would say, to get to that stage. I first moved down here to San Antonio in 1994. When I first got down, it was because of the whole surge in Tejano at that time, the 90s surge, with Selena, with the Sombra, with Maz, of course, all these big bands had come up, and they had breathed, and the record companies were involved, the beer companies were involved, Coca-Cola was involved, and they were just breathing new life into what was just considered to be Mexican music or Chicano music, our dad's music, so to speak. And so I came down to check it out and everything. I had met a band while they were touring in Toledo, and their name was Divino. They were under Capital EMI, and that's actually who I came down with.
I remember
the
that
very
group.
First band.
Wasn't
Divino? Yeah, Alejandro.
Yeah, and wasn't the guy from Baraja de Oro part of that group too?
Mario? Is it Mario?
Or I forgot his name. Yeah, he has a group now. It's called right on the tip of my tongue. It's
are they from Dallas, Waxahachie area?
I think so. I think Baraja de Oro.
Okay.
Yeah,
that might be him.
Mario Baraja.
His last name was. Okay, yeah. He was a part of that band. Yeah, and we got to be real close. And I actually moved down with them to Houston first. Mm-hmm. Then I came back to Michigan to get some of my stuff, and I ended up moving down to here to San Antonio. And as soon as I got here, the scene was really booming. And the very next week, I was already playing with a band. That band name was Via Band, and they were under Joey Records at the time. Joey Records was a really, really popular independent record label around these parts at the time, back in the 90s, early 90s. And from there, I got to meet a Grupo Beso, which was also from Joey Records, and those were my first few CDs that I recorded. Well, we even had cassettes back then. This is how long it was. I remember the first release we had was on a cassette. And then, of course, the City Boys this was like a whole Joey International record label that they had all these bands. City Boys was one. Jorge Alejandro, a good friend of mine still, which I still jam with from time to time. So I pretty much did the whole Joey Records recordings and touring with these different bands as far as Beso, City Boys. And then I think it was in 1995 that I got a chance through my good friend Larry Villanueva. He invited me to come check out Patsy Torres' band, and I began with her in like 95. And then from 95, I played with her, toured with her. That was really cool because she did those school shows, and we toured all across the country doing these school shows. She was sponsored by Lipton and CP&L Lighting and HEB, and she had some big sponsors, and they were really paying her some good money to put on all these shows. And we'd go up to Boise, Idaho. We'd go up to we do shows in Colorado and Arizona and New Mexico and pretty much all around the United States. And it was pretty cool because we would get to play music, but then also it was for a real good cause. It was a positive message. It was called the Positive Force Tour. And we did Fiesta, Texas at that time. So that was a really, really fun experience. That was a great time in my life. That was kind of what I call my college years, because I didn't really get a chance to go to college soon. I was done with high school. It was like, okay, I'm out. I'm moving away, and all that. Those are kind of like my college years. So to speak, because of the camaraderie that we had and the fun that we had on the road and stuff like that.
Absolutely. But, and you know what? You mentioned a lot of great bands. I'm actually learning a lot right now. I've known you for some years now, but I didn't realize that you were associated with all those Joey bands, and a lot of those bands had some great hits, man. You said City Boys, right?
Yeah, City Boys. My good friend David Escalante, a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Were they the ones that redid that Fugitivos Loca, but like more?
Yeah, La Loca.
That was a good. Yeah. I liked that. That was good, and of course,
I recorded on a few of his albums. Yeah, David's album.
Yeah, and then the Beso stuff was really good too. Nuevo Amor.
Yeah, Eso Loco Soy Yo. Yeah, I did all that stuff.
Yeah, that was all really good stuff, man. I didn't realize that you were, and then Patsy Torres, I didn't know that either, but that's good. And
I recorded on her albums too. Yeah, when she was with Joey. Yeah, we did I can't remember the name of the album at the time, But I remember recording with her album there at Joey Records, and of course City Boys and Beso and all these, those bands from the whole Joey, Jorge Alejandro, my good friend, and all that.
Of course. Yeah, and those were all really good albums. I mean, as you're mentioning these albums and these names, it's like I'm feeling nostalgic. I'm feeling young again and remembering, all those great songs.
I know, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. So then after Patsy, what was the path after?
Well,
that?
after Patsy, Larry and I actually did a couple of gigs, and we toured with this. He was an actor actually. His name was Mike Moroff, and he was the one that came out in La Bamba, and he came out in Desperado, the movie Desperado. He was La Bamba. He was Big Ed, Mexican Ed. He was the brothers Bob's best friend, the big biker guy. That's how everybody remembers him. But we toured with him. He was doing a Tex-Mex type of thing, and he was signed under Joey. So we did a few shows with him in Vegas and a couple other places. But that was real fun. But that was short-lived. He went back and started doing his movie thing and stuck with his acting career and all that. And that's when Desperado was released, and From Dusk Till Dawn and all that jazz came out. And he went and did that. But after him, we went to go play with Joel Nava in the Border at that time. Yep. He was signed, under Arista Latin. And we toured with him for a few months, and that was a great experience. He was a phenomenal singer, at the time. I'm sure he still is a great singer, but we did I think it was almost a year with him. And then after Joel Nava, I went back to Patsy for a little while, and at a gig in Austin, I remember Elsa Garcia's management team came up and approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in checking out what they had to offer. So I went to Houston, I checked it out, and I liked it. And I ended up playing with their band for almost a year, I believe it was. That was a great experience. She had some really, really great music and great hits. And I spent there. We went to Florida. We went to Arizona, New Mexico, all over, and did that. That was just a lot of fun. We actually think we played over there in Toledo at Las Palmas when it was still open. Yeah, I remember playing over there, and I think we did, Fort Wayne, Indiana. I believe we did Fort Wayne, and I believe we did somewhere outside of Chicago, like Hammond or something like that. We did like a 3-night over there with Elsa. And this is back probably in 96, somewhere around there, 96, maybe 97.
So let me ask you this: you said South Bend, Indiana, or Fort Wayne?
This time I believe it was in Fort Wayne.
Okay.
It was a place that I had played as a kid too.
Link's Wonderland.
Over there, I can't. Oh yeah, it was a roller skating rink, right? Yeah, okay,
I remember that place.
I remember that.
Yeah, I played there with my dad's band way back in the day. Real quick, quick interruption. Want to send a shout out going out to one of our loyal people who are always on. Random Blind Guy. Thank you very much for joining us here. He's always in the audience, so thank you very much for checking us out every week. But anyways, continuing on. So cool. Elsa Garcia, and you were doing the Midwest.
Yeah, and I got a chance to record with her and perform at the Tejano Awards with her, Elsa. And after Elsa, I'm going to say that I went back again with Patsy for a few months, and then right after that's when I got in with La Tropa F. And I recorded with them on one of their albums, one of the old CDs now by that time. And I got a chance to tour with them for a year. I did that for about a year. And that was real fun. Those guys are real great. They're I'm sure you've met David and the guys before.
Absolutely.
And we did a tour in Minnesota, Colorado, Oklahoma, all the Midwest and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun playing with those guys. Those guys are real great guys, real humble guys. I just saw David, as a matter of fact, when we did the show here in San Antonio, I believe that they opened up. I think it was David and Crazy Pimps, and I think Marcos Orozco. They all played when we played in December, at the end of December here in San Antonio. And him and Danny were there together, and he was just like, "Hey man, you guys are doing great, and you guys are superstars now. You guys are too big for us, and but just shows a little bit of the humility these guys are. You you see these guys, I think, these guys, they've been doing this for so long, and actually their dad just passed, so my condolences to them and all that. Because I remember Speedo, we'd call him Speedo. He told me a story. He was like, "Oh, so you're from Michigan, huh?" Yeah, and he goes, "I remember I would take the boys up there and we play at a place called the Guna Pure Ballroom." I was like, "Yeah, that's 5 stopping grounds." I was like, "I could ride my bike practically to that place.
Yep.
And he told me the whole story about like how everybody would be outside just waiting to hear the band, and as soon as they heard the kick drum, then they'd all come in, like ants, And he told me they had really good fond memories of playing over there in the whole Midwest area, just like all the bands that from here, they all have nothing but great things to say about the whole area, and the people from over there, of course, And like I said, yourself, that you're doing a great job in what you're doing with the whole show. And my condolences to you and to your family and to your whole musical family for the loss of Mr. Garcia and Mike. And I'm sorry that I didn't know him that well, but I met him a couple times, and I know that he was very instrumental in the shows over there and doing a great job. And so, we did lose a great person in the La Onda Tejana in him because of the fact that, I knew the shows that he would do out at Centennial Terrace, right? He would do that show and all that. Yeah, and I think that's when I met him, like the one time I met him.
I was going to say, I think that was one of the first times I met you, and it was actually, it was funny because it was the first time we jammed together, too.
That's right.
Ram Herrera was at the Centennial
that's right.
Terrace.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and he had brought,
that's right. Okay.
And he had brought AJ Castillo, and for whatever reason,
AJ was jamming. Yeah,
and for whatever reason, we were in town or something. Yep, Art Guillermo and Raymond.
And I think Joseph, my good friend Joseph, my brother, he was jamming drums. Of course, my compadre Danny was on bass at that time.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
of course,
Charlie Phelps.
Charlie. Yeah, it must have been Charlie.
Phelps. And then
probably Z.
Somehow we both made it up to the stage at the same time. Ram's like,
okay, yeah. And that's one of the first times I met Mark, was that night, yeah. And then we did another show with him the next year, I believe, when I was playing with Bobby De Leon and Mas Caliente. Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it was the next year, 2 years later.
Yeah.
But yeah, all my condolences go out to you guys and all that stuff. I know, he was a great, I know that everybody's probably going to say, besides what he did for La Onda Tejana in the Midwest, you guys know him personally. I'm sure that
super great guy, man. And today was his burial, so we were out there today, and so my condolences to the Garcia family. Mark and I, for the past few years, haven't really been working together because he was still managing my former band, Tejano Sound Band, and I started my own thing. But regardless, we stayed really good friends, and we kept in touch and stuff. So it's a big loss here to the Midwest, but I know that he's no longer suffering anymore.
Amen.
And as a matter of fact, those concerts at the Centennial were every Memorial and Labor Day, and so I keep thinking to myself, man, this Sunday we would all be getting ready to go out to the Centennial Park and doing that.
How things changed, right, in such a short period of time.
Yeah. But so when we were talking about Ram. We haven't quite got that far yet, but
we haven't got that far down the road yet.
And Mas Caliente. So now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay.
No, it's good. It's good to take these little breaks because it does help bring up other points that we might want to talk about down the road. So yeah, you were where were we?
I was with the year I spent with La Tropa F. I got a chance to perform with them. We recorded a CD with them, won a TTMA award with them, and a couple of the awards along the way. Got to do a lot of big shows with them in Vegas and stuff like that when they were first having the first Vegas showcases and all that stuff. So that was a lot of fun, And then I would say I was maybe out of La Tropa F for maybe a month, something like that, and then I got the call from, of course, it was my compadre Danny that called me for that Joe Lopez needed an accordion player. Joe and Jimmy had just split, and I guess Frankie Caballero had stayed with Joe for a short period of time, maybe a month or so, and then he, I think, went with Jimmy, and so they needed an accordion player, so I came in the band. And that, I thank all the bands. It was a blessing, all the glory be to God for being able to have that, like this musical journey that I've had. I look back and I say, wow, I know Tejano's not as big mainstream as maybe country and all these other markets, but it's ours. We own it. We have it. We are part of it. You're a big part of it. And everybody that we've been involved with, like we were just saying, Mark Garcia was a big part of it. And so I feel very blessed to be able to still be successful in it and been able to be successful in it for so many years. Like I said, all the glory be to God. But I just thank all those bands that I had the opportunity. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Eddie Gonzalez. I'm very sorry about that. Yeah, between that was between Elsa, right after Elsa. I got in with Eddie right when he split with Vida. I was actually Eddie's first accordion player right after Sonny. So people were expecting me to jump on my head, spin on my head, and I'm like, no, sorry, no, I'm not going to do that, or anything like that. But yeah, I was actually part of the Mi Charchina CD. My name's on that CD and
awesome
the credit and all that. So yeah, that was I think '97 somewhere there. And then it was Tropa, and I played with them for a year, and then I got the call, that I would really wanted to get all my whole life. I mean, when they called me to play with Joe, and I still remember going my first gig to play with Joe. It was like, okay, now this is somewhere I've listened to his music since I was a kid. Growing up, I know everybody down here, they'll go like down to the coast, or they'll go to, across over to Monterrey or Nuevo Laredo back when, it was safe to do so or whatever. Mm-hmm. That was their summer vacations. Over there in Michigan, we'd go across the Canadian border, and we'd go up to, Niagara Falls or to Toronto, Canada's Wonderland. I remember that's when the auto reverse cassettes came out, and my dad had just gotten one in our blue van. I just remember being in the back of the van, and just that cassette would just go over and over, the Maz Beyond cassette.
Oh, yeah, that was such a great album.
1986, 87, somewhere around there. Being 10 years old, sitting in the back and I mean, I liked the music, but I was like, oh, I want to hear like Run DMC or Bobby Brown or something, after a little while. But I just sat there, and we would just all the way there, 6 hours there, 6 hours back, just hearing that Maz Beyond. So when I got the call to come play with Joe, I was like, wow, this is really, really cool, because this is somewhere I've heard these songs since I was a little kid. I've always heard his music, and that was always my dad's favorite artist of all time was Joe Lopez, Jimmy Gonzalez, Maz. He had all his albums, and my mom too. She loved all his songs, and pretty much all my family from over there, they all knew the Maz music, and they loved his music. And I got to see him in concert a couple times over there, and I always looked up to, of course, Brando and Jerry De La Rosa, which did a lot of the recordings in the early 90s and stuff like that. And just that signature sound that Jerry and Brando both had. They both had their own sound, but they also had their own sound with Maz, and Que Esperabas was a little bit different from the way, Vuelvo, or say the way the Jamne Solo and the late 80s stuff sounded,
Absolutely.
But just some great arrangements, nothing but respect for everyone that came through that Maz camp, of course, Jimmy, and Brando, and it was a blessing to be able to get the chance to play with Brando and I played with pretty much all the guys, except for I didn't get a chance to play with Adolfo and with Jimmy, but we played together with Tommy and Brando, played with Brando for a few years. Even with Frankie, he would come up and jam with us, and I think even Mario came up, and I think one time, or he was there or something like that. But it was, just a great experience, starting with Joe. It was like, wow, I know these songs. I've been hearing them my whole life. So when I got the chance to play with him, I kind of felt like I was kind of like home. I felt comfortable, With the other bands, I thank them so much for giving me a chance to share my talent, to share the stage with them. And, they're so humble with these guys, like I said, they amaze me at their humility. Even like at that gig I was telling you about in December, a good friend of mine, Joey Sanchez, I'm sure you know who that is.
A drummer,
great drummer.
Right?
To me, one of the greatest probably Tejano drummers to me in my book. Mm-hmm. And we had gotten a lot of flack, from whatever, not working with people on stage or whatever. And he was just got done with his gig, and he was like striking his stuff down. He wasn't like, no, well, I'm too good of a musician I'll wait for the roadies to do it and stuff like that. He was just like, hey man, let's make the show go good, and we're gonna work together, And so a lot of these musicians down here, man, I just really respect them because of their humility, and they treat you like their family, and that's exactly the way it was when I first got in with Joe. Joe he just really surprised me with how humble he was, and just the big heart that he has, and that's why here I am 20 years later now, and I'm, thank God to be back with him. But yeah, he treated me he took me in like a son, and he took care of me, because my parents were living back in Michigan, and I was already down here in Texas, and I got a chance to play the next 8 years or whatever it was, from end of '98 to beginning of '99, all the way till 2006. I was either a keyboard accordion player or just accordion player, or sometimes just keyboard player, whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
But I got to experience that. To me, like I said, that was just like, wow, this is great. I've been listening to this guy's music since I was a kid, and to see the reaction of the people when they hear these songs and when they hear this music, it's just, it's just great. It's just overwhelming. It's amazing. And it's beautiful. The music's so beautiful, and the arrangements that they did. Like you said yourself, one of your favorite Tejano bands, of all
Absolutely.
time, and for sure, mine. Yeah.
If not my all-time favorite, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and so there was the unfortunate circumstance of Joe leaving the scene for a little bit and then coming back. And during that time, you were technically, I guess, for a short period of time without a job, which then had you continue on to your path. So between the Joe gig and the Joe gig, where were you at?
Well, I had to actually move back to Michigan because that's when my parents had fallen ill. And I stayed over there until as long as I could, and then unfortunately they went to go be with the Lord. Not unfortunately, I mean they are now moved on and went to go be in heaven. So, but as humans, we are saddened by it. It still saddens us. But no, I mean they went to go be with the Lord. My dad first, the 1 year, and then my mom the next year. But I ended up playing while I was there with Mas Caliente, with Bobby De Leon from Saginaw, Michigan.
Yep,
and
good friend.
That was a fun experience. Yeah, he's a great guy, man. And I played with my cousin, Paul Reese, who's a well-known musician in those areas and those parts.
Yeah, my cousin
and,
too,
yeah, we had a great time. Oh, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Of course. Yeah, your cousin too by marriage. Yeah, exactly,
marriage,
man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a great time, man. We played a lot of Maz, so we kind of kept the fingers going and kept the vibe going, And then I moved back down here and I started playing. As soon as I got back down to Texas, I joined with Gary Hobbs for like about 6 months or something like that, and that was cool. That's when I first got a chance to meet Mario Vigil and Gary Hobbs' band. He was there. I was there for maybe 6 months at the most, but I got to know him, in that band and all that. Just had a tremendous amount of respect for his musicianship and his playing, and was with Gary, like I said, about 6 months. And then after that, I was doing more of a local thing. I was jamming with a buddy of mine that I jammed with a long time ago, RDV. He's a local cat from around here. Pretty well-known local cat around here. He plays a lot of the Cadillac bars and stuff. And he was actually doing a lot of gigs at that time locally. And then I was corresponding with Joe this whole time, we kept corresponding letters back and forth. He would send me a lot of letters, saying great things about my parents and everything, just expressing the love for my folks. And he was real sad, that he had heard. And he had told me some great stories that he remembers having with my dad when he sat down with my dad one time. And how my dad told him, hey Joe, I'm very jealous of you. And Joe was like, oh, why? Mr. Senor Ramos, because I sing so well. And he was like, no, because you get to see my son all the time, and I see that you treat him like a son. And so my dad was kind of, like, that kind of makes me jealous. But it was so great for Joe to share these stories with me. And at that time, that's when the whole Villalobos thing came out, and Villalobos had gotten put in prison and all this jazz. So Joe was very hopeful that he was going to be released soon. This was probably, I think, in 11 or 12 or 13, somewhere around there. So he was corresponding with me to tell me to start practicing with the band and stuff like that, get the guys ready. Hopefully, we'll be jamming soon. So I kind of reached out to my compadre Danny, and we started practicing, but then, of course, the guys wanted to start playing some gigs. So we picked up some gigs, and we went in under Bam Bam y La Nueva Imagen, which was La Nueva Imagen Maz was the name of the band while I was in it for the first 7-8 years with Joe. It was Joe Lopez y La Nueva Imagen Maz. So we couldn't use the name Maz because of legal rights, so we were just using La Nueva Imagen. We were pretty much, it was myself, mi compadre Danny, and the Eddie Perez helped us out a few times, and Larry Villanueva too, these guys. And so we were kind of picking up, we just played a lot of Maz, but we were just doing mostly local gigs and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun. We did that locally for a few years, and then Ram called in, I think, 2016 or 2017, something like that. And Danny had just recently gone back, and Larry also, my good friend Larry Villanueva, he had just gone back they had gone back to play with Ram. And so they said, hey, man, we need a keyboard player, so I wanted to start jamming with them. And yeah, man, I had a great time. That brought me up to the close to where we're at now, but playing with Ram for 2 or 3 years, something like that, it was another great experience. I felt extremely blessed to be able to, leave the scene, go away and go back home even and do some things, come back and be able to play with such a respected and well-known artist, as Ram Herrera.
Absolutely.
And yeah, him and his whole organization, Gloria, they treated me great, and I have nothing but great things to say about them.
We have a question here, and also a personal shout out for me to Miguel Ortega Jr., who will actually be my guest next week from Stampede.
Oh yeah,
It
from
says,
Fort Worth. What's
"Hola,
up?
Ben and Rolando." It says, "Ben, I caught your show with Joe Lopez in Fort Worth. It was awesome." It says, "How did you guys prepare for for upcoming shows, or how did you prepare for upcoming shows with Joe? The practice, the song selection before hitting the road."
Yeah, we were actually down in South Padre Island, and the record company that Joe's with right now, they were renting us a condo, and that's what we did. We practiced pretty much every day down there. We go down there, we get there like on a Tuesday, and we'd stay Tuesday to like Friday, and we would do our practices, and it was pretty much just trying to get back in the swing of things, trying to remember all the stuff that we used to do, but then also wanted to implement a bunch of new stuff that we wanted to bring to the crowd and bring to the shows and all that. And it was really tough, getting Joe at first prepared because unfortunately he didn't sing for such a long time, and he had been somewhere where he wasn't able to just be free and just do whatever he wanted to do to practice on his craft or anything like that, so it was kind of tough at first, for him to get back in the swing of things. But I mean, he's just such a natural at it. He's just such a truly gifted, blessed person that he just was able just to get in there and start working and follow some direction. And we all were listening to each other, working with each other, and was able just to get back in it, and it really, I got emotional in the first few practices we had because it was like, it felt like old time, and even the shows now, up until 2 months ago, but it's a blessing, it's a blessing to be able to go out there to perform and to see a lot of our old fans, but also see all the new faces and talk with these people, and just we share so much in common with this music, and this music really kind of unites us, unifies us, this Tejano music, especially us, like I said, you being in the Midwest, us down here in Texas. I'm sure that Michael will agree with me when I say this, is sometimes that we here in Texas, we kind of think, oh, Tejano is just here in Texas, and it's just us. It's just Dallas. It's just Fort Worth. It's just San Antonio. It's Austin. It's Houston. But you guys doing such a great job and doing what you guys do to keep Tejano relevant in the Midwest. Like I was saying, like that's what Mark was part of. That's what you're part of. And I respect you guys, and I thank you guys for that. Just like when we go to Florida, when I remember being with Elsa, some of the bands that we tour with them, just great people, in Florida. They're, hey, man, if you need something, we'll take you over here, we'll take you over there, or whatever, since you don't know the area. Colorado, my good friends, Jimmy Villanueva and his whole family, his dad, Mage, he was a great man, great accordion player. My friend Larry Villanueva, his whole family from over there, they're doing what they're doing in Colorado to make sure Tejano's relevant. You go out to Arizona, I got some good friends, Aura Vidal out there, she's doing a great job, and just some of the other bands in New Mexico that I know doing a good job. And you go out to California, have some real good friends, Sergio from out there, and Jorge Moreno, they doing a great job keeping Tejano music strong and relevant out there in those areas, And so sometimes we think Tejano's just like a Texas thing, but it's to all the corners of the United States, and I know it's to all corners of the globe, but I think it's more of a thing where we need to do a little bit harder, work a little bit harder to get it out more to the globe. I think that's what I would.
Yeah, I mean, because in reality, I think we talked about this in other interviews, but you have people like Dwayne Verheyden, people like Los Gatos, the Japanese conjunto. I mean, those groups are coming up out of seemingly nowhere, but just because the music, it just speaks to the soul a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you, this could be a discussion that we can have, and maybe you agree or disagree with me, but I think the biggest breakdown between the 90s golden age of Tejano music, late 80s, early 90s, and now is the method by which the product reaches the masses, because for better or for worse, the record labels did have a lot of pull. They were able to get the music in some of the more remote areas, or even in some of the bigger areas, and making it more accessible, more ubiquitous, more just at everybody's fingertips. That now we have the internet, right? But and the internet, for better or for worse, does such tremendously awesome things. People who would have never even had a chance, a shot to do anything, now has the same opportunities as everyone else. But that being said, it's almost like all of Tejano music is now getting lost in the sea of digital music. It's like there's so much there that there's no authority to say this is good and this is not, or this is professional and this is not, or I don't know exactly which adjectives I'm trying to use, but this is why mas is mas and this is why something is not, you know what I mean? And
yes, of course.
maybe that analogy kind of comes across the wrong way. I'm totally not trying to
no,
offend anybody,
of course, no.
or I'm just kind of using it as an example. But how do you feel about that?
No, I think everything you said right there is exactly what is true about a lot of the musicians down here. The same. I would even add on to that, and like you said, you're not trying to offend anybody by any means, and I'm not trying to offend anybody either, or solo anybody out. But I also feel like that's why I really enjoy your show and what you're doing, is because we're bringing attention back to the Tejano keyboard, as opposed to, I love the accordion. I love playing the accordion. It's a fun instrument to play. I just feel that when we talk about what relates to more of mainstream, and it's like the Nicky Jams and the and the Fonzies and all these guys that use the synthesizer, not only for just the sounds, but they also do their music production. As I believe the accordion kind of more narrows to a genre of music from Mexico, which is fine and that's great. But I believe that the Tejano root was to, like Selena wanted to do, she wanted to implement synthesizers and distortion guitars to appeal to mainstream America. She was like, hey, I appreciate the fans in Mexico, and I'm not saying anything, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to offend anybody either by saying that. But with the technology that we have with synthesizers and keyboards and all these effects that we have and all that, I believe that is the avenue of the way that the music should be produced, is through here, as opposed to just saying like I said, I'm not trying to, but that's just my personal opinion, is that I see that the bands in the early 90s were trying to appeal with the synthesizer sounds and the distortion guitars, and if you hear Nicky Jam and all the reggaeton and the guys who have hit within the next Pitbull and all that, it's all an electronic synthesizer sound, as opposed to just an accordion sound. Which, like I said, I love playing the accordion. I think it fits in, it has its place in Tejano music. But when it goes more to like just to say that style of just that being the solo instrument, I kind of like you're saying with the music, the way the internet is taking things, I kind of feel that that's where we kind of lost a little bit too, is with Tejano. Tejano has always been that big band sound, brass sound, the horns. We've had, back in the day, they had strings, horns, organs, and all that. And then now a lot of bands are just going with, either accordion or whatever. But yeah, I'm like I said, that's why I was, excited to be a part of your show, because I know that you're putting focus back on the Tejano keyboard, the keyboard being a big centerpiece of the production of Tejano music. And I think that kind of got lost also through the years, in a lot of bands it's got lost.
Absolutely. And I want to come back to this for a second, talking about keyboards, but we actually got a question from somebody in the audience relating to accordion.
Okay.
It says, the random blind guy, he says, as a blind musician who plays accordion, do you have any advice for me on how to get my foot in the door playing Tejano? I already have on my channel. I think he's saying that he already has some content on his channel, perhaps. Do you have any suggestions on how to kind of break through?
I would just say, of course, with everything, just keep at your craft and keep, practicing, listening to other great accordion players. Listen to Frank Caballero, of course, Esteban Jordan, their music. I mean, when you can play like that, to me, is when you're able to open up your music to a whole different world. And the way that I've heard Esteban Jordan play, I got to see him live a few times, and just really, really opened my mind to the whole what you can do with the accordion, you know. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Of course, Joel Guzman, another, you know, a fantastic accordion player. Oscar Hernandez, you know, for the chromatic. Of course, David Lee. You know, there's so many great accordion players out there, and I would say, you know, listen to them, take a little bit you can from them, take a little bit of your own style, mix it together, and come up with something a little sounding a little bit different, you know, and see where it can take you. Keep doing your videos on YouTube, keep practicing your scales and all that good stuff, and learn some theory and all that, because there's nothing that impresses, I would say, musicians more when you go to play with the group, is that you can actually sit there and hang with them as an accordion player. Like another great, tremendous musician, not just accordion player, Ray Diaz de Leon, a tremendous musician, you know, all around, great accordion player, but also can read and write music and stuff like that. So, yeah, just keep it up, man, and keep rocking and rolling, man, on your accordion, your squeeze box, and you know, tag us in some of your videos so we can check them out and all that. That'd be great.
And to add to what Ben said, for those of you who are piano accordionists, try to slow down the recordings of people playing diatonic accordion and try to get some of those licks to sound true to the style. Obviously, the shuffle is different because it's not two notes going in and out. But there's plenty of great
like Rick,
piano
right?
accordion players. Rick Fuentes, who will be on next month. So that'll be coming,
Awesome.
and we can talk about the approach of keyboarding and applying it to piano accordion. But not only that, as a diatonic accordionist, knowing how to do some keyboard and talking theory, like Ben has been mentioning, will really translate over to diatonic accordion. Growing up, not to take over the interview, but growing up, I was always a piano accordionist, and it wasn't until later on in my musical career when I actually purchased a diatonic accordion. What I used to do is figure stuff out on the keyboard, you know, chords and licks, and try to translate that note for note over to the button accordion, and then figuring out the layout of the scales, the patterns, and stuff like that. And then it kind of, over time, it became kind of second nature. And Random Blind Guy says he means as far as a studio musician. So the only thing I can say to that, and then I'll let Ben take over here, as far as being a studio musician, is that you have to be where the magic is happening. You know, if you want to do Tejano music, you got to live in San Antonio, you know, or you got to live maybe in one of the other hot spots. I'm not really sure. But,
Dallas or
otherwise, if you can make yourself well known enough on the internet where you can get some remote work done, I know that there's websites like Fiverr where people can offer their services. You set a rate and you can contract people and you know, work out a deal where they pay you for your services. You knock out the part and send it back on their way. And that's one of the great things about the internet, you know, as we were talking about, there's for better or for worse, is that you can do stuff remotely. I personally have done some remote work for people down in Texas, and I'm up here in Toledo, Ohio. So, I mean, I'm not where it's at, although I did for a short period of time live in San Antonio and worked a little bit for Gilbert Velasquez. And, but yeah, if you're going to want to work full time as a studio musician, you got to be where it's at, and there's only like really one place that I can think of, and then Ben can kind of maybe add to that. But basically, San Antonio, that's where you've got Blue Cat Studios, Velasquez Studios.
There, and of course Corpus maybe too, because you still got Freddie down in Corpus, and you got a lot of. But like you mentioned, that a lot of people are doing the remote sessions now, and of course our drummer, he does a lot of that stuff. He does a ton of remote work where he'll do stuff from people from Florida and etc. So have him get in touch with some of these people he sees online doing remote session work, and reach out to them. That's what I would say. Inbox them and say, hey, look, I'm looking to get more well known and get noticed in Tejano for accordion. See what they have to say. But yeah, of course, being here in San Antonio, you would be in the epicenter of where everything's at Tejano. Here, Corpus, maybe Houston, Dallas, and stuff like that. But yeah, man, keep jamming out, and hope to see you out there, and hope to hear some of your recordings, man, Blind Guy.
James Barella is asking what website. So I'm not really sure what if. Okay, so we were talking about a few different things. Fiverr is the one that is where you can trade services over the internet. You know, people can make logos for you. People can give you lessons. People can make quilts for you. It's not just music related. It's basically anything. But a good chunk of that is a studio musician work. As a matter of fact, not trying to plug him or whatever, but Fabian Hernandez is on Fiverr, a great saxophonist. Does work for a lot of big name Tejano groups. You know, so maybe try that. And so Random Blind Guy says he's here in San Antonio. He's there in San Antonio. He says here, but yeah, he's in San Antonio. Okay, Random Blind Guy, reach out to Gilbert. Reach out to Joe Trevino. You know, all the guys. You know, maybe some other musicians that are doing it like you. Eddie Hernandez, or not? Excuse me, Eddie Perez. Eddie Perez.
Miguel Hernandez.
Obviously, yeah, and just kind of like try to get into those circles, and then once you start, you know, getting your name out there and really being able to, and that's the thing, is that studio work equals time. So if you're gonna go in there and it's gonna take you a long time to, you know, knock out the part, you know, it's got to be somewhat effortlessly for you to get callbacks. And then going back to James Barella, Fiverr was the one, and then we were talking about, I think that was the only website that we were talking about, unless you're wondering about this website, which is TejanoKeyboard.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you can always go there. We're on Facebook or whatever. But anyways, enough talking about this. Let's go back to Ben. So Ben, let's talk about your setup on the road. I think we kind of talked about this. Like, well, you have an extravagant setup because not only are you the keyboardist, but you're also the accordionist. Do you take multiple accordions, or do you try to do all of it on one accordion? How many keyboards are you using? Which keyboards are you using?
Yeah, right now I'm a little excessive on the keyboard end, you know, but it's just because there's an excessive amount of parts in this, you know, in this music.
I was going to say, it's a must. How can you not be excessive with keyboards, right?
Yeah, of course, right? So, well, I mean, a lot of people would tell me, like, well, you can only play, you know, two at a time because you only have two hands. And I'm like, well, that's kind of false, because I have a way where I trigger sounds from one keyboard, you know, using my feet. I might be triggering a sound from one keyboard while I'm sustaining from another while I'm playing parts. So I can have up to all five keyboards going at a time. Now, I strictly have the five just to make it easier on myself. You know, I'm not the young buck I was at one time, you know, where I could do everything with just two keyboards. And I don't have to set them up all anyway, so I'm like, okay, if somebody else is setting them up, I'll take five. But if I have to set them all up, okay, I'm using two, you know? But I use the five just because it makes it a lot easier. I'm sure you know, being a keyboard player, that if you have this sound just set for this keyboard, and you know that you can just go to this keyboard and there's where your road's at, or that's where your string line's going to come from. Or, of course, you know, Mas has an iconic brass sound, and I have to go in there and edit the patches, you know, which is, I did watch on I think it was with Mario, I remember them talking about the Jerry brass, you know, and I remember Jerry, you know, watching me play and says, oh man, you know, your brass is the brass, you know, we talk about the ASR brass, so it was the pop horn section brass, you know, he did some layering to his, and I had mine, and I did some layering to mine, and he was like, man, you know, you're the only one I've ever heard that has my brass without me having to give him the cartridge or whatever. That was when I had my Insonic, my ASR 10, you know, but I sampled it into my Triton. But then when I sampled it, it didn't come out as fat. So I had to go in there and I had to layer a few more sounds over on top of it to give it more of that iconic, you know, Mas brass sound. And I actually have that on all of the Tritons. And right now I'm using 5 different ones. I'm using still my X5D because I have certain sounds on there that I've got used to, like the thunder and stuff like that comes from there. I have this one. I have another one that goes with me on the road, but this is a Cross, and that one I use for strictly like triggering stuff. Like there's a lot of harps that go or they're flowing in the music at times, and so I'll sample a lot of that stuff just for those to trigger those, like with the triggering device. And then of course I use the Triton LE, which I have the brass loaded on, and then of course my Korg Triton Classic, and then of course the O1W was one of the main keyboards in the 90s where a lot of these sounds came from. the D50 being another one, and the M1 being probably the only three keyboards that are pretty much staples in all of Ma's music. And but I'm probably going to take one of them off the road here soon, because I think I'm gonna throw in my Korg Triton, the Pro, the 7060. I'm probably going to just take that. I'll probably take one of the smaller boards off the road, and I'll probably just sample everything. So I'll probably just be down to 4. That's pretty much my road rig right now. Like I said, when I have to carry them and I have to set them myself, I'm usually just taking 2. The 2 smallest and 2 lightest, But when it's, somebody else is setting them up, I'm like, oh, okay, I can play with this, and I can have this, and I can have this one, I can have my. So it's kind of like our drummer, when it's him doing a local gig or something like that, he just takes a 4-piece kit, But when somebody else is setting them up, he has all these cymbals, and I'm like, man, where did you get all these? You got these in your closet or what, But and his accordions, most of the Ma's music's all done on just the sole accordion. We don't really play most of the stuff. We play very little bit on the accordion in A and in D, that I'm just able to play it all on
the one box.
GCF.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll take one as a backup accordion, with like Panther goes as just a, because how testy these accordions can be, man. I know you play the diatonic accordion yourself, but
yeah, it can blow out a reed, or an arm can break, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right in the middle of the show, and it's just like, oh, okay, what am I supposed to do now?
Well, that actually brings up a good point. Maybe answering a question. I think it was Random Blind Guy. It says, who tunes your accordions? I hear Hohner no longer tunes. Now, to answer part of that, I don't know that that's entirely true. I think Hohner does do some tuning, but I'm not really sure how that works. I think most Tejano accordionists just go to somebody that they know, and you explain to them exactly what kind of sound you want, and they go and they tune it that way. Ben?
My accordions, I think Hohner still does do a lot of repairs, but I think it takes them a little while, because you got to ship it out, and you got to wait for them to ship back and stuff like that. But my accordion that I use now, which is Angel, I call her Angel, I actually tuned her myself. It took me a very long time to do it, but I actually tuned her, did all the reeds myself. I used to take it to Raul Moreno, but he retired, and he was a real popular accordion tuner from here in San Antonio. And within the last 5 years, I've been doing all the maintenance on my accordion myself, arms, reeds, because I do order the reeds from Hohner themselves, and when they come, they just come in usually like a little sharp, or sometimes a little flat. And I learned from him how to actually tune the reeds. And so I've been doing it myself lately. I've gotten a lot of requests to, repair and do work on tuning and stuff like that on other people's accordions. But since I don't have all the correct tools to do it, it takes me a while to do something, So I'm kind of like, oh man, it's going to take me like a month to do it, man, Mm-hmm. I'd rather probably take on a keyboard repair job. I do a lot more keyboard repair than I do accordion repair, unless it's like, say, an arm or something like that. That's kind of time consuming also, but you got to take all the springs off, you got to release the whole arm. So
now,
you got to take off the arm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, as far as the sound that you go for with your tuning, do you usually go for a drier sound?
Yeah, I tend to go for a little bit drier sound than most. I know Raul Moreno's style was a little bit wet on some of certain keys, and pretty much mostly dry, but mine's really, really more toward 440, both reeds. That's how I tune my accordion.
Yeah,
I know that a lot of people
tuning,
do the jazz tuning.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way I've tuned my boxes, both of them that I have. Actually, the Panther that I use for the backup, that's actually still at factory, because like I said, it takes me so long to do it. So I'm like, I do it one read like at a time, like I'll get there, it'll get there, But Angel, no, that I keep up with the maintenance on her, and I try to keep her good as sounding shape as possible.
We have another question here from James Barella, and I think I'll kind of answer my opinion on that, and then I'll hand it over to you. Okay, it says, are some Tejano bands doing sequence during live performances? Now, here's what. Yes, to the short answer, yes, and I think that if done correctly, it could be a good tool. But I think more bands than you think are sequencing, and what I mean by that. And this, and maybe we can agree to disagree on this, but if you've ever seen a band with a drummer and no congas, but you hear congas on the drum machine, to me, that's technically sequencing because you're using samples in a pattern to supplement the something else. And so to me, yes, Tejano bands sequence, right? To the extent of which how far they go beyond a drum machine, there are some bands. Me personally, with my group, somebody had asked me about this, but we're 4 guys. We try to keep overhead down because gigs aren't paying that much these days. But all 4 of the musicians are multi-instrumental. That 3 of them are, right. Drummer plays drums, but if we can cover all the parts without the assistance of any additional of an extra part, right? Like if it's just keyboards, guitar, bass, drums, boom, we can do like an old school Mas tune if we're covering it, or like an old Gary Hobbs, right? But the second that it's like, okay, well, we need accordion, sax, keyboards, guitar, congas, and there's more parts than there are musicians, and being that we're primarily a cover band, we want to try to keep the music as true to the source as possible. So yes, with my band, I do some sequencing, some sampling. We have pre-recorded live sax, and at times we do have some guitar. There's other bands that maybe do more than that. I can't really speak on their behalf. I can speak on my behalf. But then you can chime in and we can talk about how you feel if you think that drum machines are technically a form of sequencing. If that's okay, if you feel sequencing is okay within music, if you utilize any of it, I'll let you just kind of take over right there.
Yeah, I think more or less to me, sequencing and sampling is kind of, they are a little bit different. I would say that if you use a sample from a drum pad, as opposed to using a drum machine that's sequenced, I would say maybe that's a little bit different in that sense. I know a lot of bands will use tracks, to go strictly, they'll have the click track, and I know some bands that have the bajo sexto in there along with the click track, and that's pretty much, they have a lot of backing tracks, if they want to get a lot of different vocals, or they want to. And I think that's just in all music right now. I think popular music, they use, I think everybody's pretty much using tracks. We actually don't use any tracks really at all. I mean, we don't even, the last shows we did, we didn't even have the pad being played. Normally when we would play, we'd have, Holler was playing like the pad live or whatever. But we haven't used any type of sequencing at all with, now we do use some sampling, like we're saying, like, I guess it's like saying, to me, I would say sampling is more of like, I use it for the thunder or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking a sound. To me, it's basically like if there's a cool keyboard sound, I'm like, hey, can I sample that keyboard sound, or like a D50 sound that's iconic to these songs? I'll try to sample it and take that sound. I wouldn't consider that sequencing in the sense, because that's just taking the sound. You know what I'm saying? So, or even like the harps and stuff like that. Like, I'll sample, but then I'll have to sample back up. Yeah, exactly, right? So there's a lot of that in our music.
Yep.
And so I'll sample stuff like that. But now as far as actual, like saying, okay, well, sequencing, where some groups have it, or tracks, where they're like, okay, the bridge is coming here, we got to all go to that bridge. We don't have any, we've never done anything like that in any times that, as long as I've been with Joe, it's like, we'd forget to, or if he goes to the bridge, or if he goes to the verse, we're, like, okay, we'll just fix it on the fly, whatever, follow, whatever, right. So as far as that, because I've played with a few bands where we've done sequence, we've had a sequencer where there's backing tracks and playing to a click track. And so that's a little bit different, because then everything's got to be like, okay, yeah, we got to remember we're going to the bridge here, we're going to the beginning of the verse here, But as far as that, we've never, I don't believe with any of the bands that I've ever played with, we've ever done anything like that. Yeah, we've never with Tropa. Actually, when I first started with Tropa, I remember we were recording with Gilbert at Velocity Music. I was really surprised, because that was the first time they had ever recorded to a click track, and their timing was like, it's so great, it's so impeccable, it's like, wow, these guys can stay in time. And then Gilbert was like, no, we got to use the click track. You guys have to record the click track. So he actually made them record the click track. But So there's some bands, that they just are able to just they were together for so long, so like Juan and Jesse just have that, of course Joe, have that, just that tightness, of rhythm. But yeah, as far as us, we haven't done anything as far as sampling. Yes, some sampling for sound purposes to get the sounds to sound as close as possible to what's there. But as far as any type of sequencing, we haven't done that. Not in our band. Not with Joe ever. We've ever done. Mm-hmm. Not saying there's anything wrong with the bands that do. Yeah, like you were just saying, the budget's not there for so many musicians, and so it's like, it's all the economics, that can be.
And like you said too, there's some things that you just can't replicate live that you can do in the studio. Like say, if you have a cool backing track of vocals or something, like 6 double harmony, or your own voice double doing something, or there's so many different scenarios in which I would think that it would be kosher to use some kind of guiding track or something.
Yeah,
and this is my whole philosophy on this, and people can agree to disagree. This is just what I feel, right? I don't think that sequencing or backing tracks are bad so long as they are just a supplement to what's happening when it becomes something else. And I mean, there's people who go beyond that, and I mean, it's just,
and of course, I mean, and they can be a great thing, because believe me, there's many times I'm like, I wish we were playing on a metronome, because some of these drummers, are like, okay, now we're fast, now we're slow, so it's like, sometimes I'm like, we should play it a click track so we can make sure the tempo is straight through the whole song, So, but I mean, it's a live performance, so I understand we're all human and we get excited, or we,
absolutely,
or whatever. But
so the last thing I'll say on this, and in regards to like my personal band, is that for whatever reason, if somebody were to get off the track, or for whatever reason the track just stops, the band can still keep playing the song, and it still sounds like the song. You know what I mean? And very few people would notice, like, oh, the sax isn't there, or the conga stopped, or the guitar dropped out, or something like that. So I think when it starts doing, But anyways, so we got a few more shout outs. Raul Nano Fuentes says, hey, I know them dudes.
Raul. Yeah, what's up? Detroit, right? He's out of Detroit, right?
He's in Austin or somewhere in Texas, right?
Yeah, he's down here in Texas, right? Yep. But he's originally from up in Michigan too. I think he isn't one of those lion guys too. One of those big lion things or something like that. Hey, like I said before, as long as he's not a Cowboys fan, that's all right. He's good then.
Okay, the chat's going pretty quick here. I'm trying to, let's see. Also, shout out to Lynette Ibarra. It says, hello.
Oh, yeah, my sister Lynette.
How about the one button that makes that special jazz chord sound? I don't know what that means.
So what does she say?
She says, how about that one button that makes that special jazz chord sound? I don't know what she's talking about.
She'll probably have to explain that to me when she's not drinking, probably.
Raul Nanofuentes says, I'm happy to say that I've been honored to share the stage with both Ben and Rolando, both greats. Well, thank you so much, Raul. That's very nice of you.
Appreciate it, brother. God bless you, man. Yeah.
Okay. Shout out to Ruben Villegas again. Okay.
Oh, cool. And Adrian, Michigan in the house, right?
Yep.
That's Adrian, Michigan.
Adrian, Michigan, Los Hermanos Villegas. And then let's see. Carlos Hernandez says, yes, Nano, I agree with 2 top-notch musicians. Thank you very much, Carlos. That's very nice of you to say.
Is that Chucky from Toledo?
It's probably Chucky. It's probably Chucky.
Chucky. He used to play with the one that used to play with us in Los Untouchables. Yeah, he was a little kid then, man. He was like 12 years old.
And also to Michael Rodriguez, which that might be one of my students, I'm not sure, but he says, I knew you were Milli Vanilli, Rolando. Ha ha ha. Just kidding. So
okay.
Just ragging on.
I know Mike Rodriguez from here too, but I don't know if it's that one or not. But I remember some of the great bands that we were just talking a little bit about, the Villegas brothers, and of course also Lacos from Lansing, some very talented. Of course, the band Johnny Vasquez and all the guys that you used to play with.
Tejano Sound.
Course, Tejano Sound, and of course La Corporación from the Lansing, right?
Yep.
And,
all those bands from Lansing. Yep.
I remember growing up hearing La Sensación was around at that time. La Sensación, I think La Venganza too out of Detroit, I think was the band Más Caliente. Of course, my cousin Ruben and Ivan, from there in Toledo.
Absolutely.
And all that. But yeah, I remember growing up with all those bands over there in the Midwest. So big shout out to all the Midwest musicians, and thank you for keeping Tejano music relevant in all these parts, and keep jamming it and keep passing it down to your kids and your kids' kids and all the generations after that are next to come. So wonderful, beautiful music.
And speaking of Ivan y Fuego, Michael will be on the show, I think, next month.
Michael, yeah, okay.
We'll have him on sometime.
Cool.
Carlos Hernandez says, yes, it's Chuck, LOL.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
Ruben says Chuck was 5 when he was in the Untouchables.
What did he say? What was that?
Chuck was 5 in the Untouchables. Like, he was 5 years old.
5 years old, yeah. He was like 5 years old. I remember that. I was like, man, this little kid can play, man. I was like, wow, man,
Yeah, great talent, man. He's a great musician.
Yeah.
Good drummer, good keyboard player, good singer. He's just all-around great musician. Grupo Calibre. Raul Nano Fuentes is Grupo Calibre. I don't remember them.
Oh, Calibre, is that from over there in Toledo? There's another band here in San Antonio called Calibre. There are some friends of mine. I don't know if he's talking about those guys.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay.
But anyways, so you have all these keyboards. You're playing accordion, and right now you guys are stopped, right? You guys, like, nobody's playing, right? Is there any talk about when you guys will get back out to the road? And not only that, but I just found out today, I guess I've just been so busy with stuff that's been happening, but you guys released a song, right?
Yeah, the company released a song. It was actually recorded before we came back with Joe. He had already recorded the song with Monterrey Music. We've recorded 2 or 3 other songs with Joe so far, but that's not the one one of the ones that they decided to release. But yeah, we're very excited about the new music that Joe has out and that we're going to release with him soon, and we're very excited about that. And Joe's such a great songwriter, and he's a great arranger, and so we're just very excited about the new music coming out, and we're excited to see where it takes us. And yeah, like you said, we've all been on lockdown, and I know that you had said that you were doing some mariachi gigs and all that stuff, and everything kind of just came to a halt. I mean, this whole COVID-19 thing, this whole coronavirus thing has kind of, brought everybody to a standstill, and just kind of, I guess in a way, it's been such a tragic thing. And I guess, I'm not against the people that are like quick to say, let's get back to business as normal or anything like that. But I did have some people pretty close to me that were affected by this, pretty bad. And through this tragedy, I think that we can see the good in everything, and learn from this, from being on lockdown, and learn to appreciate the simple things again, in life and all that. Of course, we want to get back out on the road as soon as we can and get back to work and all that stuff. But it's been a life-changing, I think, event for a lot of people. This COVID-19, and through the tragedy, like I said, I know a lot of people have lost their lives, and it's touched millions of people across the world. But through tragedies, if we can look at the good that come out of it, the most tragic thing was, when Jesus had to pay for our sin. That was pretty much the most tragic thing in history. So, but look at the good that came out of that, and the things that we can learn looking back on that. So I think one day we'll look back on this and say, wow, we came out of that, stronger, and we learned a lot from that.
And I think through his guidance, you know what I mean, we will get through this and be stronger on the other side, so to speak.
Amen.
And we just have to keep praying and all in God's time, because his timing's always perfect, so sometimes we don't understand sometimes we don't understand why things are happening the way they're happening when they're happening, but in reality he's the only one that knows why. And I think that's
amen.
I think
that's the same. That's my that's why I love to share my music with people and talk all day and all night about music and stuff. But I always also love to to give thanks and praise and honor and glory to the one that even gave me the ability to play music, which is my Heavenly Father. And my dad, of course, my God worked through my dad to show me and give me the gift of music. It's something that I thank him for every day. And I think my father had great parents, growing up, and they both loved music. They both shared music with me a lot, from Frank Sinatra to Joe Lopez. We had so much music in our house and all that. And I used to use this analogy in ministry when I was in ministry. That I still remember my dad placing my hands on the keys. When I wouldn't know what notes to go to. And I would use that as an analogy of that's how God is, like sitting down at a piano. If you don't know music, it can look very confusing. You can get real intimidated. You can get real scared. But if you allow the master to place your hands, you can begin to make beautiful music. And that's what God wants to continue to do with each and every one of us in our lives. I'm just thankful that I'm able to share the gift of music with everybody and give him honor and glory. That's one of the things that I really want to do coming up in my career next, is to really do some great gospel music and do some great Christian music. There's so much great gospel and Christian music, and even gospel Tejano and Christian Tejano. But that's something that I really, really want to put more time and effort into to releasing. I love Tejano music. God created Tejano music. He loves Tejano music. But I love giving him thanks and praise and honor through playing music. So.
Absolutely. We're getting to about an hour and a half of talking here, so I have a few more questions, also a couple more shout outs. Raul Nano Fuentes says the Molinas in San Antonio, so I think he was making a reference to Calibre.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I remember those. I know those guys. Yeah, they're good friends of mine, the father and the son, and I've jammed with them too, and everything. I think that's where maybe him and I jammed out. I think it was with them, with Calibre. That's right. I might have been playing the accordion, he might have been playing keyboards or something like that. But yeah, great guys, man. Great band and great family band also, yeah.
Steve Alvarez Blues says, "What's up, guys?" So shout out going out to Steve Alvarez for being here a time or two. I've seen him on the video, so thank you for joining us. So I got a couple more questions for you before we wrap this up. Okay, You're a Mas fan. I'm a Mas fan. I'm sure you can't wait to get back on the road.
Yeah.
When you're doing a show, what's the one song that you get geeked about playing? What's the song that gives you goosebumps when you play? What's the one that you're like, if we don't play any other song in the night, this is the song that we have to play?
Well, there's so many, I would say, in the Mas catalog that we play that I really, really just enjoy, playing. But, of course, one of them was Que Esperabas. I just love the intro, the slow intro. I love the sound of just the whole arrangement of it and the dynamics of that song. It's one of my favorite songs, of course. But we don't have that in the show right now. And of course, No Te Olvidaré, that's one of the songs that's just like, classic. That's just like, yeah, that gives me goosebumps when we play it. Hearing Joe sing it, the great song that he wrote is a beautiful song, and the arrangement to it, everything about that song, its dynamics, the build up, just everything about it, the instrumentation of it. It's just so much fun to play that song. So many different parts. It's a challenge to play the song. But that one probably, is one of the ones that I really, really, it's close to my heart, playing that song.
What?
I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll say there's a ton of other ones that I can mention, but those two for sure are ones that stick out to me. Like, wow, these are the hits to me. These hit my heart.
I have to share a quick story with you. Being a Mas fan my whole life, I was always too young to go and see them whenever they would come to the area. So I never really got a chance to see the original Joe and Jimmy Mas. And then when I first started dating Bianca, we went down to Texas, and I think that was the first time I met you. And
that's right. Yeah, I remember
and you
that.
invited us to go see Joe Lopez. And
Bianca
and I,
Austin, I think.
What was that?
I don't know if we were playing in Austin or something. Yeah, but I remember inviting y'all. Yeah.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, Bianca and I were on vacation. She already had plans. We were going to do this and that, and we ended up going to go see Ram, and it was a great show. But I have to say, to this day, I still have not on my bucket list. I got to see Joe Lopez, man. I gotta meet the guy. I gotta see it I got to see him in person. I got to see Jimmy, may he rest in peace. That was cool, but I've always been team Joe as far as my musical taste. Once the split happened, I kind of, and no disrespect to Jimmy fans or to Jimmy himself, because it was another great band, but they were two separate sounds, two separate, people can always associate them as one. and to an extent, yes. But so Ben, next time we happen to be in the same area and Joe's playing, man, I'm gonna tell Bianca we have to call Ben. We have to go and make it.
All right.
Because
All right, you got it, man. You got it. Yeah.
That's
We'll set you up with
something
it all.
that I've always
Yeah.
wanted to to see. So the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on, if there's anything that you kind of want to talk about as far as what to look for, for people to look forward to if they want to get in contact with you, if you're okay with, or if people are looking for anything, or if you have any kind of social media or anything, if you want to stay in touch with people. Oh, one last thing. Let's see.
Yeah.
Chris Rivera says, hope all is well with both of you. Thank you, Chris Rivera. James Varela, do you do piano tutorials? I'm sorry, what was that?
Drummer Chris? Rams drummer Chris?
I think so. I think if that's I played with Ramos, now plays with Ram, I think, right? Yeah. Okay, and maybe it's him.
What's up, Chris? How you doing, my brother?
James Varela, do you do piano tutorials on YouTube? Well, to answer your question on my behalf, that's what this whole channel is all about. So, talking about music theory, talking about, I used to do tutorials, but a lot of my videos were getting flagged because of copyright violations. But I do have some private students that I still teach. Michael Rodriguez is one of them. Sorry, I don't know if I was supposed to put you out like that, Michael, but if not, then, well, too late, right? But if you're interested, James, at least lessons from me, all my information's here. Go to TejanoKeyboard.com. You can sign up for lessons there. You can, even if it's just like a single tutorial, like, hey, I've been trying to work on this song. Can you help me out with it? I'd be more than happy to take on new students, especially right now, since we're not gigging and stuff like that. It's, they're pretty affordable, and, it helps me a little bit. I don't know, Ben, do you do any lessons locally or online or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to do some lessons, before locally here, but I'm kind of I'm still back kind of in the Stone Age, I guess, a little bit when it comes to the whole social media and the whole technology stuff like that. I'm not too. I tried that Tejano show and named that Tejano Jam with Bam Bam. Like half the time I was like trying to figure out how to do a lot of the stuff. I had the phone flipped one way and I was trying to flip the other way, and I was like, okay. I kind of started to figure it out there at the end, but I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool, But I haven't done lessons in a while. I did a few accordion lessons for about a year back in like 2000s and stuff like that. Some local young kids and stuff like that. But I haven't really done anything lately, and I don't really have any. I mean, I probably could put out, maybe one tutorial. Maybe I thought about doing something like that, just showing some of my gear, like you talked about, some of my rig and stuff like that, what I use on the road, what I use in the studio, what I use at home, my personal keyboard and stuff like that. Maybe showing pretty much all Korg stuff. I actually do still have the Roland that I learned on that my dad gave me, the Juno 60, the old school keyboard that I learned on. I still have that.
Awesome. He
left that with me. It's Bajo Sexto. It's still back there. I still have the Bajo and stuff like that. But I thought maybe about doing a short video about showing just some of the gear that I use, I record and stuff like that. But as far as tutorials and all like that, you have that whole thing covered. That's really great. Like I said, I actually stumbled upon the Tejano keyboard because when I played for church, like I can read and write music, but if you don't do that frequently, it's kind of one of those talents that it's harder to do as you age. It's like sight readers. I can see guys just see a note on the staff and be able to immediately, by memory, they just know what it is. For me, I'm like, okay, hold on, phase, FAC, up the staff, and everybody, good boy does fine and all that. So I'm like, okay, where's that? Okay, and I look at the key signature and figure out what key it's in. So what I'll do a lot of times when they give me a piece of sheet music, like at church or something like that, I'll just look up tutorials, piano tutorials for a certain piece of song, like How Great Is Our God or something like that. And then YouTube I noticed it starts to recommend stuff, like if you're looking up piano tutorials or if you're looking up Tejano songs, whatever. So it showed me the Tejano keyboard one time. I was like, oh, what's this? So I checked it out, and I had actually seen your page, before, and I was like, oh, this is cool, man. I was like, you can play. First of all, I didn't even know it was you at the time because it was just a screen of, a keyboard and just, showing chords and stuff like that.
And honestly, back in the day, I did try to kind of keep it low key. Like, I wanted people to subscribe and stuff like that, but I didn't want people to be turned off by, oh, what do you mean Tejano keyboard? You're from Ohio. You know what I mean? So I kind of
I see. Okay.
I kind of tried to be a little bit more incognito about it back then, but after a while, I was just like, okay, well, people already started to realize that it's me. So, and at that point, I didn't care. So, yes, there was a reason to that, that it was only the screen, but like now people know who it is and whatever. It's no big deal. But yeah, I'm glad that you came across those. Hopefully you enjoyed them, and hopefully.
Yeah, I did very much so. Yeah, good job. Like I said, I mean, you're doing a great job with what you're doing with this whole interview process. I saw some of the talents that you've had on here. David de la Garza, somebody that I've looked up to myself. Of course, Mario Ortiz. A tremendous player. And some of the guests that you have coming up and everything. I'm very excited to see what they have to say and everything, just to hear their perspective of how their life's journey has come, as far as they've come and stuff like that. But yeah, keep up the good work, man, and everything you've done over there. God bless you, and of course my cousin Bianca. And the whole family over there. Got to be with you guys and see you guys through all this, this time, and hopefully soon we'll be able to get a chance to see you guys down here or maybe up there with Joe. And like I said, come check us out and just have a great time. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank once again my primo. My primo Bam Bam Ramos. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry for those of you who are watching. The lower third started off, like I said, I had a rough couple days here in prep for this because of the funeral and stuff like that. So my apologies to you, Ben. When it came up, I had last week's guests on the lower third for a second, and I did away with that and just did a quick makeshift. Put your name at the bottom and stuff. So my apologies to you guys. I'm one person trying to produce this show on like zero budget. So thank you everybody for watching. Ben, thank you for taking up so much of your time with us. If you want to stand by, that would be great. Otherwise, next week we have Miguel from Stampede. So
Miguel,
Mike will be on with us, and I've already been kind of prepping with him. We made a quick joke about how we've talked about like production value has been getting better and better as these go along, and especially with some musicians who have more accessible technologies and stuff. So he's going to go a little over the top, but it's going to be pretty cool. He's got some live stuff that he's going to try to do with some tracks that Stampede. Well, I shouldn't be giving away too many secrets, but tune in next week. It's going to be super cool.
Yeah,
that
sounds great, man.
Super cool. So everybody stick around.
Yeah, Mike's a great keyboard player, man. I have a lot of respect for Mike.
Hats off to him.
Talent.
Yeah, great talent. Yeah. All right, everybody. That was it for tonight. We'll see you next week.